Incredibly and frankly disturbing scenes outside the Magistrate's court in Senekal yesterday. Farmers stormed the building trying to get into the holding cells. They were looking for two men accused of murdering a farm manager. They are accused of tying him to a pole and assaulting him until he died. There's been a huge conversation about why the police yesterday did not end up arresting farmers who set a police van on fire. Crispin Phiri is the spokesperson for the Justice Ministry. Crispin, good afternoon to you. These were people who wanted to take the law into their own hands, and frankly, I shudder to think what would have happened if they'd gotten to those holding cells, got their hands on those suspects. What's your reaction to what happened yesterday?
That's quite correct, Stephen. What we saw yesterday was just wanton vigilantism, where people sought to take the law into their own hands. We have since seen subsequently throughout the course of the day versions where people were saying that police initially provoked such a reaction. But in a constitutional democracy like ours, we think that truly that is not how we solve problems at all. We cannot have a situation where at any point in time, whether black or white, people take the law into their own hands.
Race does seem to be key to this. I mean, there's a big conversation around how the police treated these farmers. We see police officers, frankly, on a daily basis, arresting, tear-gassing black protesters every week. You will know how many black people have died at the hands of police during protests, and yet the police didn't do that to white farmers yesterday.
Well, Stephen, I think, as you correctly say, public order policing is something that has been subject to great debate in this country over the many years, various incidences where public order policing has been called into question. And also the police have said that these are things that they are trying to address. But specifically as to why the police didn't arrest these particular individuals as they were committing these heinous crimes, I think is a question that the police officers themselves can attend to. But what we call for is a strong enforcement of the rule of law. And part of enforcing the rule of law is to ensure that when you observe criminality happening or when you see a crime happening right in front of you, you have to ensure that you bring about those people to book as quickly as possible, because ultimately that's what brings about a credible justice system, quickly arresting people and bringing them to book to ensure that the court is able to dispense a particular judgment expeditiously. And crucially, though, these actions of these individuals going to seek out people who have committed a crime whilst they're in the custody of justice is actually a very heinous act, in that it actually undermines the very same justice system that ought to protect us all.
So you urge the police to arrest people who did this, to look at the evidence that they have and act on that arrest, on that evidence.
Precisely, Stephen. That is what is required of police in any event, and we hope that they would do this quite quickly, because that is what will restore normality in society.
There's several big dynamics here. The racial dynamic is absolutely there. I think there's also probably a dynamic about the relationships between farmers and farm workers. There's another dynamic around what happens in smaller communities in rural areas and economic inequality. But there's another dynamic too, and farmers are not alone in this. They look at the criminal justice system and they look at how many people evade justice. This is not the first time that we've seen people try and really stoop to vigilantism. I mean, we see it in communities around the country. This is a huge problem. This is a symbol, if you like, of what's happening in other places, in other ways, around how so many people have lost faith in the justice system.
I think, Stephen, there are concerns around certain aspects of the criminal justice system, but we shouldn't elevate those concerns to a point where it should be able to justify this form of vigilantism. Granted, there are various dynamics at play as well, as you correctly outlined, but then again, one thing we must be clear about is a crime is a crime, regardless of whether it is a farmer who has been murdered or whether it's a domestic worker who has been murdered. A crime is a crime, and the justice system must be able to process both of those crimes in a manner which is proportionate to the criminality that is at play. And that's what we must always stress. We should not find ourselves in a situation where we try to create certain categories of crime that are more important than others. And over the years, I think we've fallen into such a trap. In this case, there's a case that an individual was murdered who happens to own a farm. And not to dismiss farm murders on the whole, but to say that we must have a criminal justice system that acts on information that is before it and doesn't look at who the crime has been committed to or who has committed the crime. Race, class, and gender should not be the lens upon which the criminal justice system necessarily responds to. Yes, we must be able to protect people of a certain class who might find themselves exposed to certain conditions because of their socio-economic conditions. That is true. But insofar as enforcing the rule of law should apply equally to anyone in society.
I mean, in a way, this is all about the criminal justice system as well, and the frustration that people have, and there are various symbols of that frustration. Do you believe that we're now going to see a change? Are we going to see the criminal justice system working more effectively, better than it has in the past?
Definitely, one of the commitments that Minister Ronald Lamola has sought to make since the beginning of this administration is to ensure that we have what we call an integrated criminal justice system. And we think that by having an integrated criminal justice system, you would see the chain of the criminal justice system as a whole working a lot more efficiently. And this is what we want to achieve from our perspective as justice, is that at all points of the criminal justice system, it must be well-oiled, well-linked, so that it can work quickly. We want the wheels of justice to turn, but they must turn at a speed which is proportionate to justice being seen to be done.
You will have seen the reports, Crispin, and I'm really bringing this up to record your no comment, but you'll have seen the reports that the NPA is about to arrest the Secretary-General of the ANC, Ace Makashule. The Justice Ministry, do you have a view on whether that would be the right move by the NPA, by the Hawks?
Stephen, the day a politician has to comment about whether an individual somewhere is being arrested, that would be a sad day for justice.
So it would be difficult political territory. I mean, a senior political leader in the governing party being arrested. This is a huge move if it happens.
Like I said, Stephen, and in fact, the President has said this, the day you see a politician commenting or informing you that someone somewhere is about to be arrested or should be arrested, then you have a serious problem with our criminal justice system.
Would be fun to make you say it a third time, Crispin, but I'll leave it there. Thanks very much indeed. Crispin Phiri is the spokesperson for the Justice Ministry. Well,